Hello? Doing well. Great. No, no, I had on the president of the Chamber of Commerce. Been on the job 5 months.
Oh, I'm fine. Hey, listen, but I was gonna turn you in. No.
I was in a roll when I was like, oh, like, thank you so much for bringing.
No, you're good.
On this side, I guess, sorry. No, I'm not.
You can sit back where
They said I could have a lunch, so.
probably something. You was on the program later this afternoon.
I was on in the morning.
Oh. All right, you. You're a motorcycle rider.
I was until I crashed one day. It's I hit the deer. I just breaking my back. I broke my back. I broke my back 3 times.
Hopefully those kind of sports or something.
Yeah.
One was lifting something I shouldn't be lifting. The second was fell off the ladder. I was man caving out my garage. I was putting the radio wire where the ceiling meets the wall, right into a speaker. And instead of taking the 3 minutes to move, I needed to move to get the ladder properly. I had it leaning tilted up against something. And it was just up at the top step, leaning, the ladder flipped out from under me in a second. Just landed bad,
Fine. You might be like, the chance of getting struck by lightning is so many million times. The chance of falling off a ladder, you probably fall in a small category.
Yeah. I feel like that guy in the, what is it, where he, hit the buttons or whatever it was.
Okay, we're going to get started here in just a moment, but I do want to do a quick mic check for our folks on Zoom. Karen Robinson, I see you. Can you hear me? Great. All right. For those of you attending virtually, we do have, I did put a copy or a link to the board meeting link into the chat box. So if you access that, we'll get started here in just a few minutes. We do have several joining us virtually, so making sure everything's working correctly.
All right, I'll go ahead and call the meeting for August 9th, 2021 of the Ross Area Development District to order. Our first item of business will be our pledge of allegiance. It's going to be led by Judge Jack Whitfield of Hopkins County. And Jack, you don't come up here because those attending virtually won't be able to hear you unless you're in front of the lights. Don't let TV stars out of it. All right.
Quickly stand for the pledge.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And our opening invocation is going to be led by Mayor.
Let's pray. Our gracious Heavenly Father, we thank Thee for your love and your grace and your mercy. We ask, Lord, your blessings upon all of those who are sick and afflicted. We pray for their healing. We pray for comfort for those who mourn the loss of loved ones. And always, Lord, we ask that you guide us and direct us that we might be better servants of thine and better servants for our community. We ask it all in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Thank you, Mayor. All right, first item of business on our agenda is approval of our minutes from our July meeting. And if you had a chance to take a look through those, I would entertain a motion. Those who approve those presented, if that's a pleasure. Motion by Mayor Johnson. Do you have a second? Second by Judge Tribble. Any questions, comments, or corrections? All in favor of approval, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, like sign. Next is our treasurer's report. And Ms. Chrissy.
We should be at 8.33% of our budget. We are at 6.71. You can see that all line items are, except for our travel, it's within our budget. So since the uptick with COVID, travel has been there.
Anyone have any questions? Motion by Judge Alexander to approve the financial report. Do I have a second? Second by Mayor Cameron. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. Carries. Next on your agenda there, you'll see our meetings upcoming for August. And then also there is September for our annual meeting, which will be our next scheduled regular meeting instead of meeting here during the day. We'll be that night for our annual dinner. Of course, the NATO conference is listed there as well for those of you that are attending that. At this time, we'll move on into our federal and state reports, and I believe Ms. Morgan Albee with Senator McConnell's office is with us virtually. Morgan, you want to?
Yes, can you all hear me okay?
With us, Morgan?
Can you all hear me? I'm here if you can hear me.
Yes, there you are.
Okay, good, good. Sorry, I'm not sure what was going on. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm sorry I'm not able to be there in person today due to some other commitments, but I'm glad I can still join you virtually. So thank you for that opportunity. I just have a quick legislative update. As I'm sure many of you are aware, the Senate has been considering a bipartisan infrastructure bill and was in session over the weekend as they try to wrap that up. A final vote is expected on that bill either later today or tomorrow. But as soon as that's over, in contrast to the bipartisan process that we've just seen, Senator Schumer and Democrats plan to turn to the budget resolution, which would tee up the budget reconciliation process that they will try to use to ram through a massive $3.5 trillion tax and spend package through on a party line vote later this year. If anybody has any questions on those legislative items or anything else, as you know, please just always don't hesitate to reach out. Thanks so much again for the opportunity.
Thank you, Morgan, for the update. Appreciate that. Moving on, we have Jason Hassard, who is also joining us virtually. So Jason, if you're there.
Yes, thank you very much. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Well, great. It's a pleasure to be here for Senator Paul. The senator also is taking a look at the transportation legislation that is coming up. His biggest concern always is that the federal government continues to spend more and more money that they don't really have, although he does feel infrastructure is important, and he has proposed many times over the years moving foreign aid money back to U.S. infrastructure, especially to Kentucky infrastructure. And he definitely is looking at ways to have input on this bill and making sure that Kentucky receives its fair share of funding for projects like the I-69 Ohio River crossing and other projects here in the Pennyrile. One issue that the senator is working on that impacts agriculture here in Kentucky is waters of the U.S. That is legislation that would define exactly what a navigable stream is. Currently, the Corps of Engineers, the EPA, they look at navigable water wherever 2 drops of water meet. That could be your kitchen sink. Senator Paul has proposed as of a week ago that, and something's proposed in the past, if you cannot put a canoe in that body of water and actually navigate it, it should not be considered part of the waters of the US. And this impacts agriculture on loans, government programs on cover crops and things. And Senator Paul really wants to keep the waters of the US detached from agriculture as much as possible. So that is one of the things that he is working on currently. If anyone needs me, please call or email. Senator Paul will definitely be happy to help.
All right, thank you, Jason. Next, with Congressman Comer's office, we have Corey Elder. I think I saw Corey Elder. Yeah.
Thank you, Judge. Just be pretty brief. Congressman Comer's been in the area with the August reset so far. We had a visit in Madisonville last week, and then we have several more trips planned in that area development district this week with Todd and Logan County, or Todd and Christian County. Congressman Comer's watching Leader McConnell and Senator Paul with this infrastructure bill. We see the need, the bridges, the broadband, but we don't want this to be a blank check. We want it to be targeted infrastructure spending. We have several DC staff in the area as well. Our legislative director has been meeting with several officials and county judges, as well as Mary Carter will be joining us here shortly. She is our grants director. So if there's any ongoing grant projects y'all are working on, be sure to stop and talk with me and her later. We want to make sure that we can get a letter of support from Congressman Comer. Thank you all.
Thank you, Corey. And I believe virtually we have with us Representative Melinda Prunty. Representative Prunty, are you there?
Sorry, I was muted. Got grandkids here, so just always glad to be with you. Sorry, I'm not with you in person. We heard in the appropriations and revenue this month that KIA still doesn't have plans for dollars for broadband, but they're supposed to, all the RFPs are supposed to be this month. And it should be indicative of the unserved areas, but we're still unaware of the exact timeline of the completion. So hopefully we can get something for that for you in the near future. With water, according to water, currently $250 million is allocated to KIA for improving infrastructure around drinking water and wastewater. $150 million will be out of drinking water areas. In the budget review subcommittee on transportation last week, there was an update on the shift plan. Currently, we're in the project phase, which y'all are probably already aware of. That's being discussed. So, in A&R, the economy, you know, they keep trying to act like it's a great rosy picture because we've got all these revenues, but personally, I have a concern because they're all from federal, and it's like who's being this put on the back of our kids and grandkids. But I mean, we do have some good revenues coming in, so hopefully we can get the economy going, and hopefully we can make some changes to continue to improve the economy for currently and the future. So again, glad to be with you, and sorry I'm not there in person.
Thank you, Representative Prunty. Is there anyone with us virtually that I may have missed? No? Okay. All right, we'll move right on then to our reports. And first is Ms. Amy Crowe and Paige Carlisle with our community development.
Good afternoon. Real quickly, wanted to go over some new funding that's been made available since our last meeting through the American Rescue Plan, through the U.S. Department of Commerce and the Economic Development Administration. If you all would, in your packet, there's a one-pager that's color-coded. It's in landscape orientation. If you would refer to that as I'm going through these programs real quickly. EDA a couple of weeks ago issued 6 notice of funding opportunities with their $3 billion allocation from the American Rescue Plan. 4 of these programs we feel specifically will be of interest to our communities. The first is the Build Back Better Regional Challenge. There's $1 billion that's billion will be $1 billion available under this program. This program is specifically intended to transform regional economies, and that does not mean that it has to be limited to one county. These projects can span across counties throughout the region. The program will support regional growth clusters with a combination of infrastructure, workforce development, entrepreneurship, and planning projects. With this program, they would like to see the formation of regional coalitions with one agency identified as the lead agency for this challenge. And this opportunity is going to be funded in 2 phases. The first phase, EDA anticipates 50 to 60 awards for planning and technical assistance projects that will help regions plan for phase 2, which will be the implementation projects. In the phase 1, they are anticipating that awards will be somewhere in the neighborhood of the $500,000 mark. To participate in phase 2, which are the actual boots on the ground projects, you do have to apply for phase 1. So we do have to go through that planning and technical assistance procedure there. For phase 2, EDA is anticipating making between 20 and 30 awards for clusters of 3 to 8 projects in those regions. And they are expecting those awards to be in the upwards between $25 and $75 million each for those interrelated projects. There is no set match requirement for the Build Back Better Challenge, and $100 million of that $1 billion will be set aside for coal impacted communities, which we do have here in our region. So that is something that we're going to be taking a good look at. The deadline for the Build Back Better Challenge is for phase 1 is October the 19th. So that's coming up pretty quick. The next one is the Travel, Tourism, and Outdoor Recreation Program. EDA has $750 million available under that program. $510 million of that is going to go directly to the states. So that'll leave about $240 million that will be available for competitive grants. This program is intended to support the development and implementation of strategies that support travel, tourism, and outdoor recreation sectors. You do have to show that your community was negatively impacted by the pandemic in those sectors in order to be eligible for this program. There is a 20% match requirement. This program will fund construction projects for cultural, arts, and tourism facilities, new outdoor recreation facilities, and trail facilities. This will be a rolling application until March the 15th. But they are going to fund these projects as they deem them eligible as they come in. The next one is the Good Jobs Challenge. There's $500 million available through that program. This program is intended to support the region's workforce system by getting Americans back to work through various workforce development activities. They would like to see the development of regional workforce training systems comprised of multiple sector partnerships, develop skills training curriculum and materials, secure technical training expertise needed to train workers, and they are looking for these to be industry-led training opportunities. And then they will also implement non-construction projects to provide workforce training and connect workers with quality jobs, including wraparound services. EDA is going to be holding a webinar. EDA has held webinars for each of these programs over the course of the last couple of weeks. There is one upcoming this Thursday for the Good Jobs Challenge, this Thursday at 1 o'clock. If any of you all would like to participate in that, we do plan to participate and we'll forward any information along there. The application deadline for the Good Jobs Challenge will be January the 26th. And then the last program I wanted to point out is the Economic Adjustment Assistance Program, or the EAA program. This program mirrors more like EDA's traditional programs in that it's their most flexible funding program. There is $500 million available under the EAA program that will fund both construction and non-construction activities. These activities do need to be related to job creation or job promoting type activities. We can look at things such as infrastructure improvements, job creation based projects, workforce activities, and then also planning activities. There will be a 20% match for this program, and their funding amounts are going to look very similar to what the EDA traditionally funds, which is somewhere between the $500,000 and $3 million mark. These funds are being allocated per EDA region, and the Atlanta region, which we sit in, will be receiving $134 million of that $500 million, and $51 million of that $134 for the Atlanta region will be set aside for coal impacted communities. So that's a good opportunity for us here in the Mural region. The application deadline is March 15th for the EAA program. However, EDA has said multiple times that they anticipate these funds to go very quickly. So the sooner we can get those applications in, the better chance we have of accessing those funds. EDA is going to be hosting a webinar on the EAA program this afternoon at 1 o'clock. And so if you all see me step out, that's where I'll be headed to get some more information there. One important takeaway regarding these funds, your city and county American Rescue Plan funds that you receive cannot be used to match any of these programs. So as you're thinking about projects, please keep that in mind, and that match will have to come from some other source besides those ARPA funds. If you're interested in applying or have ideas that you want to kick around for any of these programs, feel free to give me a call. We continue to participate in those webinars with EDA to learn as much as we can about those. And we've already been talking with several of our communities regarding applications for this. Now I'd like to turn it over to Paige to give us an update on KYTC roads and funds.
So this fiscal year, we're continuing to perform our system-wide review of city and county-owned roads through our contract with KYTC. And I know a lot of our officials are already going to be familiar with this from working on it the last couple of fiscal years, but I'll go over the process for anyone who's not. This is an effort to conduct a comprehensive review of all city and county owned and maintained roads in the state to make sure they're accurately represented in the state's data. This is quite a bit more thorough than our usual contract with KYTC for just general update maintenance. This is sort of an overhaul of just sort of redoing the whole list. What the process actually entails is KYTC will compile a document called an Appendix A for each city or county, and that will list all of the roads that are currently on file for that system. And that will include the name, route number, and length. And you'll be, I will send that to the mayor or judge, and they can confer with their public works or EMS or a road superintendent, just whoever knows best whether or not that list is accurate. And after any changes are made on that, you can send it back to me and I'll pass it along to KYTC. And they'll usually have some kind of questions or concerns about the list. So from that point, we go back and forth between me, wherever you guys, whoever I'm corresponding with, and the state to line out sort of all their concerns. And then that's usually the longest step of the process. That can last quite a while, or it can go pretty quick. It depends on how many changes are needed to make sure everything's accurate. And then once everyone's satisfied with it, I'll send it back to KYTC and they'll generate a new list with a resolution. And the resolution will include a list called the Appendix A, which is roads to approve to keep in the system, and Appendix B, which is any roads that need to be taken out. And once that is passed through fiscal court or city council, That will serve as official documentation for all of the roads listed. So like the main point of this is to provide documentation for any roads that are lacking it or are not currently represented in the road system, but you may be paying to maintain. This will enable you to get funding for those. Anything that's out of date, records wise, we want to make sure you're getting funded for everything you're actively maintaining. So that's the main goal of this. And we've already got some progress going in most of our region. I'll be initiating the review in Caldwell and Muhlenberg counties this fiscal year, but following up with quite a few in progress reviews elsewhere in our region. And the handout in your packets is actually slightly out of date. It says I expect to receive the notice to proceed. I actually received it about the day after I wrote this. So we're gearing up for this process pretty soon. You'll probably be hearing from me. And a separate thing I wanted to mention is that we're also working towards redistricting, which it's not roads related, but we're still in the preliminary stages of that. We're looking for the census data that we need to be released probably around mid-August or September. As you start looking into that process of redistricting and find you need help or anything, please feel free to reach out to us and we'll work with you. Does anybody have any questions? Thank you.
I'll just add to that on redistricting. I know that's one of the most important things you all as local officials do this time of year. If your clerks need our assistance with that, we've already heard from your clerk and working with several of your other clerks. So have them contact us as soon as they can, just to let us know so we can have them on the list to be prepared to work with them. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy, Paige, for that update. Now we'll bring up Ms. Jill Collins, for your agency on aging and independent living.
Good afternoon. I have just a couple of quick updates, and you can find the information I'm going to review in your packet. First thing I'm going to review is in regards to our meal program and our nutrition program. I just wanted to provide you some data from the beginning of the pandemic, March the 16th, 2020, and reporting through July the 23rd of 2021. We are showing a total of 382,099 meals that have been provided to individuals throughout the district, which is an enormous amount of meals for such a small area. So we are grateful that we're able to get those meals out to those individuals that need those. Also want to point out for our total clients served, when the pandemic began, we did have the opportunity to add on new clients outside of our regular programs. And so you can see that with the total clients served, we initially began to serve 1,443 clients that were new, not already attached to our home care or our Title III programs. And so of those 1,443 clients, we're currently still serving 627 of those individuals. So that shows us that the need is still out there and that the meals are still necessary out in the districts. We can go on to the next slide, and we reopened our senior centers on July the 1st. So we've just been reopened just a little over a month. Things do look a little different even today than they did on July 1, but this is just to give you an idea of what the average daily attendance has been looking like since we reopened post-pandemic. And as you can see, the numbers are still pretty low compared to what they were prior to the pandemic, but we are seeing individuals that are interested in coming to participation in the activities in the centers. We are seeing an uptick in COVID cases, which I know all of you all are aware of that. And actually, all but 3 of our counties are back in the red. And as a precaution, our senior center provider, PeADD Allied Community Services, made the decision early last week to temporarily close the Hopkins County Senior Center for intensive cleaning, and they will reopen on August the 16th as long as things don't continue to go in the wrong direction as far as COVID numbers. But with that being said, even though the Hopkins County Senior Center is temporarily closed, we are still continuing to provide curbside meal pickup and home delivered meals to those individuals. It's just closed to in-person participation. And in regards to the curbside meals, I had originally reported last month that we were going to discontinue our curbside meal pickup at the end of July after the reopening of the senior centers. We have reevaluated that with the numbers of COVID in our counties. And so the decision has been made to continue the curbside meal pickup in all of our counties through the end of August. And at that point, we will again evaluate the situation in each county and then determine at that point if we can go ahead and discontinue the curbside meals or if we will go ahead and extend that again for a period of time. Outside of that, the wait list update is in your packet. It's broken down by county. If you have any questions about that, you can see me after the meeting and let me know, and I'll be happy to address any of those questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Jill. At this time, I would ask Ms. Molly Deal and Tom Scholler, I think they're going to tag team. Oh, there you are. Couldn't see you so close. Our workforce development update.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and you have the Molly and Tom show today, and Sheila is at a doctor's appointment, so we're filling in for her. We want to bring you up to date with what Molly and I and our counterpart in the purchase area, Marion Medlock, do as far as business services go. And I think most of you may know this, but we just want to refresh your memory and let you know exactly some of the things that we do. First of all, West Kentucky Workforce Board, as Jason I think alluded to earlier, we serve 17 counties, the 9 counties within our area, and then the 8 counties in the purchase area. There, as I mentioned, Marion Medlock is our counterpart down in the purchase area, and she's on the call today. But we work specifically with economic development in our areas. Carter's here with the Southwest Kentucky Economic Development. We work very closely with them, but also the Lake Barkley Partnership with Amanda Davenport, and then the Muhlenberg Alliance for Progress, and also the Hopkins County DEC. So there's 4 economic development corporations in our area that we work very closely with. We also work with the chambers in our area and providing economic information that they may need in the help of the recruiting industry or businesses looking at coming into this area, labor market information or specific information that we might be able to obtain through the KY Stats program that Kentucky provides, and then also information from the Department of Labor on the federal level. Also, our business services, the next part of what we do is that we also help existing companies or companies looking to come to this area with a hiring event, a job fair, either at their place or if we need to find a location, such as a community college location or whatever, we assist with that in providing our staff and providing directional advice on that. And then the day of the event, as far as staffing it and helping with that. We also help with the advertising of applications that they may need to fill their jobs that they have, of which there are quite a few right now. I think we all know that. And then we also help in pre-hiring or pre-employment skills. If they need assistance with that, we can connect them with the community colleges in our area as far as assessments. I'll let Molly take over.
So one of the aspects that the business service team has really honed in on in recent years is to help employers advertise their open positions on social media. Facebook posts, as you guys know, are a fantastic way to get your company information and open positions out to the public quickly and broadly. Each of our career centers has a Facebook page where daily jobs and hiring events are posted. And then, of course, the West Kentucky Workforce Board and PeADD District has its own Facebook page where similar information is posted. Each page has their own following, and because of our coverage area, we have potential to reach thousands of people through one post. So during fiscal year 2021, which just ended June 30th, we assisted 353 employers with posting about their opportunities. We will also assist employers in marketing their positions before a big hiring event to help promote interest in that event for the job seekers who attend. Next slide. So as you can see, we posted some pictures from some of the recent job fairs that we've had in our area. Due to COVID, in-person hiring events in 2020 were basically non-existent. However, we've recently had some job fairs in the area where staff have assisted in the behind-the-scenes prep and organization of the event. The first picture, as you can see, the Hopkins County Job Expo was held in Madisonville on June 8th. About 53 employers attended, and we had around 350 job seekers attend. Interviews were conducted throughout the event, and offers were actually made on the spot. In the first hour of the event, over 100 job seekers were lined up outside the venue doors waiting to get in. And we were pleased with the amount of job seekers who attended. They were dressed appropriately. They had resumes in hand, waiting to speak to the employers in attendance. And we've heard from multiple employers from that event that it was the best job expo that they'd actually been to in years. So we were proud to have been a small part of that. And I'll let Tom talk about the Hopkinsville one.
I did a brief update the last meeting, but I did want to go over a couple of things. As you see on your screen, we have a lot of military personnel come to that job event. And so there's a lot of transitioning soldiers and or their spouses who attend these events. The Hopkinsville event attracted approximately 350 people. We had 80 plus businesses and manufacturers there that day. And I know there were manufacturers and businesses that left with applicants that day that they hired. I've worked with one of the manufacturers who gave offers to 30 some odd individuals the following week. And I did place into on the job training contracts several of those people. So I know there were results at that job fair. And again, I'll reiterate, there are positions out there if you're looking for a job. It's not that hard to find. You can go out and just drive through Industrial Park in any town, and I think you can see that. I do want to back up real quick on the business services, something I didn't mention. And seeing Carter here reminded me of that. We do work with existing industries and businesses also. Our team will go out in conjunction with the economic development, either Ray in Madisonville or Carter here or Amanda at Lake Market Partnership, or wherever we need to go and work with those existing businesses. And we bring in a team concept where they don't have to sit down and bring in different people at different times. We can sit down at the table with the military representative, local representatives from the workforce board, and then the educational institutions in the respective area, whether it be the community college and or the public schools, and to find a talent pipeline and develop a course of action for them to attract employees. At this time, we're going to job fairs. Mary Ann, if you're listening, if you want to make a comment or two real quick about your Paducah job fair, which held just last week, jump in real quick.
Well, thank you, Tom. I appreciate that opportunity. Yes, last week we, together along with the Paducah Chamber of Commerce, the City of Paducah, as well as Paducah Economic Development and the Kentucky Career Center, we all came together along with WPST, Paducah Sun, to sponsor a job fair at the Julian Carroll Convention Center. We had 82 employers that were present, and we had 435 job seekers. The evaluations are coming in with a lot of positive information about that event. The employers felt like that they actually had the opportunity to truly connect with job seekers. They've been struggling to try to find folks, and a lot of times it just needs that personal touch. So we had a really great event, and I appreciate my workforce friends and family for coming over and helping with that event.
Thanks, Mary. Next slide. One of the programs that we wanted to talk to you quickly about is on-the-job training. It's very popular with employers in this area simply because it's really easy for them to participate in, and it puts money back in their pocket. This program is administered by the West Kentucky Workforce Board, funded by the DOL through the state of Kentucky. And it's perfect for companies who are new to the area, or maybe they're in the process of expanding and trying to build up their workforce quickly. In order for companies to qualify, you need to have full-time positions paying over $12 an hour with benefits. Those are basically the minimum requirements for employers. And to give you an idea of the process, the company selects individuals that they're ready to hire. The employer goes through a quick eligibility process at the local career center for the individual. And then for a predetermined amount of hours, the employer trains them on the position they were hired into, as they would any other employee. Each month, based on how many hours the individual has worked, we reimburse the company 50% of their wages to compensate for lost production time as the person is learning new skills on the job. So for example, if the employer has 30 workers participating in an OJT contract at their facility, they're making about $20 an hour or so, and each of the contracts is written for 480 hours, which is roughly about 3 months. The employer would receive $144,000 back total in reimbursements. So this is just an example of some of the potential cost savings. This program is designed, like I said, to help companies put some major money back in their pocket to continue onboarding and completing their workforce, which, as you know, right now is very, very important. Next slide.
In your package, you'll see a spreadsheet, which you see up here on the screen. Just to give you an idea of on-the-job training contracts and the amount of money that's been dispersed in the area. You can go down the list there and see. But the total master agreements that we have right now are 33 master agreements with businesses and industries in the Penrod area. Oh, actually, it's Penrod purchase area, excuse me. The total individual OJT contracts currently right now are 24 with the individuals. We have completed here recently 146 contracts. So as you can see, they're very popular with companies in this region. Companies really that use this really appreciate the benefit of getting 50% of the salary of the designee back to them.
Next slide. Okay, and finally, another program that we offer is work experiences, which assists the job seeker in gaining experience and increasing their skill set. Work experiences are just a little bit different from on-the-job training contracts, and that in these situations, the participant is basically our employee. So the West Kentucky Workforce Board pays their wages and then covers their workers' comp during their training period. In July of 2020, the West Kentucky Workforce Board received funding from the Kentucky Office of Employment and Training to establish a program called Employment Recovery, which was basically designed to provide disaster relief employment and work-based learning opportunities for individuals who were negatively affected by the pandemic. As you know, many people lost their jobs last year due to COVID, and these were the folks that we targeted for this grant. BST staff works with work sites such as local food banks, the Salvation Army, libraries, local housing authorities, and other nonprofits to assist them in finding workers so they can keep their facilities operational. Eligible individuals were placed with these various work sites and temporary work experiences, and the individuals expected to adhere to the rules of the work site, conduct themselves accordingly. They also fill out timesheets and journal entries, which they turn into us for payroll purposes. At the end of the work experience, the work site is expected to hire on the individual themselves. This COVID grant was hugely successful, and we had 39 work experiences total over the course of the grant. Even though we spent all of the COVID grant money, we still have other funds available for work experiences. So if you know of an employer who might be interested in participating, just let Tom, Mary Ann know. Thank you. And then to the next slide. We've provided our contact information if you didn't already have it.
One other piece of information is in your packet. It's in the monthly packet each month, but it's the labor market information on the unemployment statistics. So if you look at that, if you have a question, it's broken down by your county. If you have a question about that, please see us. We'll be glad to answer any questions. And seeing if there's no other questions at this time, we'll turn it back over to the chairman. Oh, yes, Mayor Lynch.
Yeah. You all by chance sort the number of jobs
No, we have a list of each person that came in, we have them registered, and we have, it's captured by county, but as far as if they're employed or unemployed, we do not have that.
I can tell you for the job expo, sir, we did capture that information. And I can tell you that a lot of people, they recently been to something, so they were coming in.
Tom, we captured that information in Paducah.
Thank you, Mary Ann. Any other questions? Mayor, but since you spoke up, I do want to thank you for your help and assistance on the job fair here, along with Carter and Amanda Davenport as far as being sponsors. And I have to give a great big shout out to WHBO and the HBU group for their sponsorship. The man jumped on this and really helped us out. There are job fairs being planned and hiring events in the future in the region, so we know it's a great need of that, and we'll have the system work with you.
Thank you, Tom, Molly, Terry Ann, for that information. Appreciate Mayor's question. That's a great point. Before we move on to new business, I couldn't help but notice we had walk in the room with a couple of distinguished gentlemen earlier. I don't know where RJ went, but Lonnie Campbell back here in the back with Financial Services and Keiko, and Mr. RJ Palmer with Compass Financial. Guess he had to step out probably for a phone call. Yeah. But Lonnie, do you have anything you'd like to say?
No.
Glad to have you. Glad you did. And you don't have to stay. You can sit if you want. Okay. Yeah, car seats.
Yeah.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay. All right, we'll move on then to new business. And the first item is our monthly code of ethics report. And we've had no issues with ethics related items for the past month. So we'll move right on into our guest speaker, Mr. Carter Hendricks, who is now the Executive Director of Southwestern Kentucky Economic Development. We all know him previously as the Mayor of Hopkinsville, and he sat on this board, so I don't think he really needs a great deal of introduction, but I think he's here to talk to us today about You Decide Kentucky, or LIFT, or whatever else it may have been called, but anyway. Not that. Okay. Different. Okay, good. I'm glad. See, I think this time. Good.
The only reason I want to clarify that it's not LIFT or the acronym that came before LIFT, which was lost, is those presumed an outcome. And as I'll share in just a second, this doesn't necessarily presume an outcome of what local governments might want to do or might not want to do, should you be given more authority and autonomy. But before I jump right into this, I do want to say thank you for giving me just a brief moments of your time to come and share about You Decide Kentucky. And if you've ever seen someone wearing those three-way hats, you know, I feel like I'm wearing a three-way hat right now because I really speak to this from my experience as a former chamber president, as a former mayor, and now as an economic development director. And I would have shared this exact same opinion at every step along the way of my journey over the last several years. But it's become more acutely part of what I think about when I think about helping Kentucky and our region be more competitive with economic growth. And I won't ask you to show your hands, but I assume many of you were like me over the past couple of weeks that you followed the Olympic Games. And if you want to show your hands, that's fine. I did. I watched them pretty much every night. My mother, who lives with me, was very happy that they went off last night because they had taken the place of Law and Order SVU for 2 consecutive weeks. It's true. She was very excited. I, on the other hand, could care less about watching another rerun for the umpteenth time, but watching the United States compete and win, if you didn't follow it very closely, if you can win the Olympics, I think the USA can claim winning the Olympics because we had the most golds, the most silvers, and the most bronze. And I'm pretty sure that means you win the Olympics. And I like winning. I think you do too. In fact, I know you do. You like winning in your community and in your region as much as anybody does. And so what I really want to share with you today about You Decide Kentucky is why I hope you'll agree that it's important to help Kentucky win. And so in this part of our region along the southern border, we routinely see success in Tennessee, and we see that success celebrated, and we often lament some of the tax advantages that you might find there, no income tax, and wondering, could we ever see that same type of state competitive position of no income tax in Kentucky? But we also see in the Tennessee model and other models like Texas, and I see John Maury back here who serves on the board of the organization You Decide Kentucky with me as well. We also see models in Texas and Tennessee that allow for more local control and local autonomy of your tax revenue. And so what I really want to share with you today is just kind of what I believe is a twofold approach to how we're looking at tax reform throughout the state and what You Decide Kentucky in particular is trying to encourage. And from my perspective over the last several years, it's become pretty clear for our region, for our state to be the most competitive, two things really have to happen. Statewide tax reform that includes becoming much more competitive against states like Tennessee. As a border state here, we see that very clearly, but any state that we're going to be competing against. So seeing tax reform at the state level that honestly, authentically allows us to be more competitive. And you'll notice I said tax reform. I don't presume whether that's an increase or a decrease. What I can tell you is that the income tax, from my perspective, is a significant disadvantage to the state of Kentucky, especially to the counties across the southern border. And many of you who are in these counties across the southern border, you see that day in and day out. It's a disadvantage, and we know it, we see it, and we communicate about it, but ultimately it's going to take state action to do something about it. So that's one part of that assumption. But then the other part is empowering local governments to have more ability, more tools in your toolbox so you can be more responsive to your community's needs. Because ultimately, to be the most attractive state, it's going to require people wanting to come here and live here. In today's world of economic development, it's not just about do you have the good utilities and the low tax rate and all those things. It's also about, are you an attractive place for people to want to come to you and to live and their work where they live. So having that state taxation is one thing, but having the ability at the local level to invest in your infrastructure, your quality of life, your public safety, and your needs is absolutely critical to attracting people to your communities, which will help create economy. And so You Decide Kentucky is really looking at one simple aspect of full tax reform, and that is this: encouraging the General Assembly to amend the Kentucky Constitution, which is necessary for there to be any real substantial change to Kentucky's tax code, including giving you at the local level more authority and more autonomy. What you do with that authority and autonomy would be your decisions to make at the point in time that you wanted to make them based on the argument that you could make or whatever it is that you're trying to do. And I would hope that in your positions, you would agree that having more tools in the toolbox certainly can't hurt you when you need to be competitive and when you need to invest in your community and in your region in a way that will allow you to bring more people in and recruit more industries and companies so we can work with the Toms and others of this region to help those folks find even more jobs. And by the way, I want to brag on that business services team for just a moment, Jason. I think they're still in here. I think Tom is still somewhere in here. Either way, just want to say thank you to Molly. Thank you to y'all's hard work, because at the end of the day, they do show up and they will show up and they will help companies, whether that's in the recruitment process or during their process of being successful here. And I like to refer to them as our workforce ninjas, jokingly and lovingly, but sincerely, is that they're nimble, they're quick, and they'll show up. And I think that's really important. So really do thank you guys for your hard work. What we've got to do as leaders is help make sure that we're creating the conditions that help companies want to come here and grow here. And I believe what You Decide Kentucky is pushing is exactly doing that, and that's why I'm involved with it. So I've got a handout. I didn't pass it out beforehand, but I'll make sure they're left for you. If you go to youdecideky.com, they'll walk you through what that organization is really looking at. But it's a four-step process. First and foremost, there has to be General Assembly action taken to amend the Constitution, to agree to amend the Constitution, to allow the Constitution to be ratified or amended. And that needs to be taking place. There is state leadership looking at that issue and working those angles. That is not what this board is doing specifically, but it is certainly very aware of the efforts of those in the General Assembly that are looking at doing that. But that's House Bill 181 has been what you're going to hear referenced a lot. That is that language of House Bill 181. So the General Assembly has to first agree to allow the Constitution to be opened up and amended. Step two is then the voters of Kentucky will decide whether or not to allow for this amendment to take place, allowing local governments more autonomy and authority. So the first two steps are significant steps. And I don't think anyone suggests they're going to be easy or are they going to be a process that would happen quickly. And so those of us who are on this board realize this could be a long conversation. Many partners are going to have to be involved, but it's worth it, because if we're going to be competitive, we're going to have to be honest at what's necessary to be the most competitive. And I should note something. It's not as if we're not seeing success in Kentucky. We are. there are announcements, there's good work being done, there are jobs being created. But to be the most successful, to be able to really compete at the highest level, there's no doubt that tax reform is going to be needed. And so those first two steps, getting the General Assembly to agree that we should amend the Constitution, the state constitution, and then getting the voters on the statewide referendum to agree to amend the state constitution. If those two things happen, the third thing is goes back to the General Assembly, and they will then decide the framework for how you would have authority at the local level to have more options, more tools in your toolbox. And then there would be a final fourth step, if and when this ever gets to that point, and that's each of your communities would decide at the point in time you needed to decide if you had a tool that you wanted to use, and if your local citizens would allow you to use that specific tool or not. And so it's as close to local control, local decision-making, local authority as we could possibly make the decision around revenue. And it's one of the reasons I'm firmly behind supporting it, because I've seen firsthand how often our hands are tied at the local level with the restricted system that we have. And it's very clear to me, having seen it from my perspective as a former mayor. I see it as an economic developer because so often when we're recruiting a company, they want to know, what's your infrastructure like? What are your incentives like? Do you have land that is available? Well, you can't possibly have all of those answered if you don't have the resources necessary to be able to afford being competitive in this very competitive world of economic development, economic growth. So to me, these two things go hand in hand. Having a state that has a more competitive tax code, including looking at our income tax and getting more competitive, and then ultimately giving you more autonomy, more authority, more control, so that you can react and you can have a vision for the way you want your community to be. And we've got good relationships with our friends in Frankfurt and our friends in Washington, D.C. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I just would like to know that the people that I see and trust every single day have the authority and the autonomy to get done what you want to get done, and that we don't necessarily have to go to Frankfurt and Washington, D.C. to ask for the revenue that was rightfully yours in the first place. And that's simply the way that I see it. That doesn't mean that our friends in Frankfurt and DC don't have a very valuable role. They obviously do. And we obviously support that. But getting you more opportunity and more autonomy is what you decide Kentucky is all about. So we wanted to come today just to educate you about the organization. As I said, I've got handouts here I'll leave behind for further follow-up. The website is up and running. Feel free to take a look at it. Feel free to call me with any questions that you might have. And if there are any alibis or anything I left out, John Murray, I'm sure, will be happy to point that out to me. John, anything you want to mention?
Well, a couple of things. First off, that's all part of the job. The way this is characterized, I think that a lot of us can identify with is a home rule. I think that's a term that a lot of us know. One that is natural property. I think that's something we want to keep in mind. Third thing I'll mention is this board will put together initially. But one of the things they want to do in order to make sure this is successful is to make it a grassroots statewide effort. So for example, like I said, they would like to see a minimum of 3 board members in each area development district. They want to make sure that like what we do, et cetera, that the board members and activity at the local level statewide. And that was one of the things that we decided as a problem with previous administration. So
Thanks, John. Appreciate you adding that additional context. And I should also acknowledge that there are a number of statewide organizations looking at this concept of tax reform. So You Decide Kentucky is certainly not the first or the newest. I know our friends at CAECO have certainly been involved in conversations along the way, the Kentucky League of Cities, the Kentucky Chamber, Kentucky Association of Manufacturing, and many more that will be involved. At the end of the day, it's going to take all of us coming together, being willing to have very honest conversations about our position and how to be competitive. And even though I speak to it from a southern border perspective, because I represent 3 counties that are on the southern border, think about it this way. If we're trying to get a neutralizing advantage of no income tax against our friends in Tennessee, then all of our friends north of us are gaining an advantage in that scenario. So if you were one of the northern border counties and Kentucky eliminated its income tax, you would be setting across the border from a state that had an income tax. And just like we see a lot of people head towards Tennessee on a daily basis, we might see more coming into Kentucky on a daily basis. So it's that type of perspective we're going to have to make sure we have here. Judge, to the point earlier, this does not jump to a conclusion. So when I talk about income tax, that's a personal perspective that I have. But this, You Decide Kentucky, is not about what you would ultimately decide to do if you had more tools. So whether you chose to use them or not, it doesn't determine that. It just gives you the choice. So the local option sales tax assumed the sales tax would become a tool and that you would be able to use that. This says all of those tools could be available to you because we're going to amend the Constitution, providing that opportunity, whether that's sales tax, alcohol tax, or whatever it may be. And then you could have that opportunity should you decide to do so. You may not decide to do so. So I'm reiterating that because I don't want anyone who might be listening who might pick up on this to suggest, well, this is just about taxes and tax increases. It is not. It's simply about amending the Constitution and ultimately allowing you more choices and autonomy and home rule, which at the end of the day, I would hope our people in this region would appreciate. Trusting you, the people they elect, the people they appoint, and the people they know firsthand with those very important decisions, and giving you the resources to be as competitive as you can possibly be. That's why I support it. And again, that's why I'm here and appreciate your time this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you, Carter. You all did an excellent job explaining that. I might also add, the way I like to explain it as well, is the purest form of government as well, this whole process and having the citizens decide. So thank you, Carter, for being here and talking about that. We do have a couple of employees I'd like to recognize today first, and you've already heard a little bit from her. She's joining us on Zoom, and that's Marianne Medlock. Marianne serves as our business services liaison, mainly working in our purchase counties. And she's celebrating 20 years of service this month, so you will find more information about Marianne in the newsletter. So when you have an opportunity, take that time and read about Marianne. So let's give Marianne, there she is on the screen. Let's give her an applause. Next, and this is somewhat bittersweet, and I'm extremely happy for him, and I am sad for our organization, but we'll soon be losing Mr. Craig Morris to the ranks of retirement. And Craig has really served the Penn region well, and we're definitely going to miss his skill set when it comes to transportation planning, comprehensive planning, planning and zoning, you name it. And when it comes to planning, Craig has been a part of it here in the Penn region. I think, Craig, you've been with us for 24 years. It'll be 24 years in September. So good job, my friend. I think your chairman, Mr. John Murray, is also here today, who we've all already heard from. But I think you have a couple words you'd like to say as well. And John, I'm going to bring you this microphone just so our folks on Zoom can hear you as well. All right.
Nothing too elaborate, but I wanted to personally thank Craig. Been working with him for a very long time. PeADD has been very fortunate to have two people in this position that were around and very informed. Jerry Chapman, of course, preceded Craig. He was here and did a great job. Craig came in and had an even broader planning background, and that's something that I think we took for granted initially. But as he became more involved in a lot of different activities here, again, initially, I think he was very knowledgeable about transportation. It's been added to that portfolio and has done a wide-ranging job for PeADD for a long time. And I want to just personally thank him for all of his work. I hope he enjoys his retirement. I hope that he has a good time in Indiana, but please come back to visit. Thank you, Fred.
Going back to be a Hoosier. You'll see a press release that went out last week regarding our upcoming annual meeting. We're excited about seeing everyone. And I'll say we're getting a number of questions about COVID protocol, but we are going to work to make sure this is a safe event. So stay tuned. Finally, just wanted to remind you about the upcoming Pride of the Penn September the 23rd. Any golfers in this room, we'd love to have you join us and represent the PeADD board. Mr. Chairman, that's all I have. I know we're running over time here, but if anybody has any questions, I'll be happy to take those now or after we end the meeting. Thank you all.
Thank you, Jason, and congratulations, Mary Ann, and so congratulations, Greg, will be missed. Wish you the best. All right, anyone aware of any other business needs to come before the board? There being none, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
You really- I have a second by Judge Whitfield. Who made the motion, please? Okay, thank you, Scott. All in favor? Hang on.
I recognize that voice anywhere.
Thank you all. Thank you all. Thank you, everyone up there.